Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Just because she's extremely wealthy doesn't preclude her from having bail.
Out on bail, the Chinese telecom executive arrested at YVR is released from custody, but now faces possible extradition to the U.S. Also,
I wanted to make sure it got there.
Canada Post backlog. It has consumers changing shopping and shipping habits. And
this was all empty this morning.
The rush to buy carbon monoxide detectors after more than 24 poisonings in BC.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. The CFO of Chinese tech giant Huawei has been granted bail less than a week after being arrested at Vancouver International Airport.
Meng Wanzhou now faces possible extradition to the United States on allegations the company skirted trade sanctions against Iran.
While a BC Supreme Court judge was satisfied Meng does not pose a flight risk, her release comes at a hefty price. The CBC's Briar Stewart reports.
When the judge announced that Meng Wanzhou had been granted bail, her supporters who had been in court and outside standing around with signs started clapping.
I feel exhausted, and I can, I'm quite satisfied with the Canadian system.
We think she should have released right away, back to China. That's what should do.
But Meng will stay in Canada, in a home owned by her husband, and she'll have to abide by an 11 p.m. curfew. In the judge's decision, he referred to her as a well-educated woman without a criminal record. He said she could be released with a number of conditions to prevent her from fleeing. Her husband, a venture capitalist, will put up $7 million in cash. The defense also found others willing to help. Canadian citizens who know Meng, like her former realtor and neighbors. They will put up an additional $3 million in cash and property. The judge says Meng will have to hire a surveillance team to accompany her whenever she leaves her house. She will also have to surrender her passports and wear an electronic monitoring bracelet. In a statement, Huawei says, "We have every confidence that the Canadian and U.S. legal systems will reach a just conclusion in the following proceedings. As we've stressed all along, Huawei complies with all applicable laws and regulations in the countries and regions where we operate." Meng is accused of fraud for deceiving financial institutions, but experts say this extradition case is far from typical.
What's fascinating about this case, of course, is that it revolves around sanctions. Sanctions is a political issue.
Leo Adler is a criminal lawyer who's been watching the case.
What you may ultimately see is a very concerted effort to attack and challenge the basis of the extradition on the grounds that this is a political decision.
And the extradition process could take years, which is why Meng is planning to bring her 10-year-old daughter from China over to Vancouver to live with her. The next time Meng will be back in court will be in February. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, you can blame the heavy rain for long SkyTrain lineups this evening. Service on the Expo line was put on hold because of flooding. Crews brought in a pumper truck to clear the knee-deep water that pooled inside the Columbia Tunnel. That's the Columbia Street Tunnel. Service through Columbia Station has since resumed, though riders on that line are warned to expect delays. And in a few minutes, Johanna will be here with more on the deluge and the mess that it caused everywhere.
And it was a mess for sure. Well, the fear of late holiday deliveries with Canada Post is forcing British Columbians to change shopping and shipping habits. Crown Corporation has hired extra workers and brought in more delivery trucks.
But it hasn't been enough to clear the backlog of packages. Tina Lovegreen is finding out how some customers are turning to other companies.
It's the most hectic time of year for postal workers. And this year, it's been extra busy. Canada Post is dealing with a backlog of 6 million packages. The delays are partly because of the 6 weeks of rotating strikes, and the news has people changing how they ship.
I mailed a Christmas gift, but I used an expedited service.
Even those sending regular mail are taking extra precautions.
I don't know when it is reaching, so instead of sending regular mail, I sent on a registered post.
In an effort to speed up deliveries, Canada Post says it's hired 4,000 extra workers and has an extra 2,000 vehicles working across the country but it is dealing with 3 times the normal holiday volume.
The good news is letters will be delivered on time, but when it comes to parcels, there's a backlog. And Canada Post says it can't guarantee standard shipment time, and it'll stay that way until January.
Notices like this one, warning of delivery delays, are turning some customers to other companies.
I wanted to make sure it got there.
Others were politically motivated.
Just a small thing that I can do to contribute to. I don't think legislating them back to work was the proper thing or to do. So that's my small contribution to the postal workers.
But it doesn't stop there. The fear of late deliveries might be driving people back into stores.
We find 1 in 4 Canadians are postponing spending or cutting it back because of Canada Post disruptions. And I think the upshot of that is in the next few weeks, we may see more people going into stores to shop because it will suddenly be more reliable and more, in some ways, more convenient.
But for those with family living far away and packages on the way, fingers crossed that gifts will make it under the tree.
Yeah, I think it'll get there on time, but if not, we understand there's, issues going on right now.
Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
In Surrey tonight, residents are pushing back against a plan by Mayor Doug McCallum to save money by postponing a new ice arena.
Mayor Baines is live outside Surrey's council chambers right now, where those people are gathering to have their say. Mira?
Well, the Finance Committee is taking place inside council chambers, and members of the public are speaking tonight. Now, there was a public outcry after details of a draft budget were released last week. Now, Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum plans to make cuts to a new library, a community centre, and the proposed Cloverdale Ice Arena. It's been years in the works. This was a scene last night at a rally. Now, it took place in front of the old Cloverdale Arena, and the community has an aging facility with 1 sheet of ice, but a lot of young hockey players, the Cloverdale Minor Hockey Association and Community Association, were out there, and they used the rally as a plea to continue with plans to build the new facility. And this is what they had to say before council today.
The current council doesn't understand the need for this arena and is looking to scrap whatever progress has been made. There is a huge demand for ice. Minor hockey associations set their registration fees based on the cost of ice rental and other related fees. City rinks are much cheaper than private rinks. Hockey is one of the most expensive sports to join.
So, Mira, how crucial is tonight's Finance Committee meeting?
Well, it's very important, Mike. City Council and the Mayor are listening to the public's concerns. So after they listen and review details of that draft budget, they'll be making a decision on Monday to whether to go ahead with some of these changes. And then later this month, they'll be making a final vote. Now, Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum had a very interesting preamble to this public hearing. He had suggested that the rink project be revisited next year, and he suggested a possible public-private partnership. This is what Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum had to say tonight.
We're going to be looking at different ways and different procedures that are used literally around the world to build recreation facilities, because we need to build recreation facilities and we need to do it at the same time as keeping the city of Surrey fiscally strong.
The final decision on this budget will happen on December 19th, so just before the holiday break.
All right, Mira, thanks. Mira Baines live in Surrey tonight. Well, it wasn't exactly unexpected, but it's probably still unwelcome. Vancouver Mayor Kennedy Stewart says property taxes are going up almost 5%. Stewart made the announcement during a budget update at City Hall this afternoon. He says the reason for the 4.9% tax hike is mostly out of his control. Inflation, the province's new employer health tax, and the opioid crisis are all adding to the city's budget pressures.
It's not to downplay, nobody likes to pay new taxes, but for an average condo owner, this will mean about $3 a month that they'll be paying. And for the average property owner, it'll be about $9 a month.
Stewart says 1% from the 4.9% will go to hiring new firefighters and police. Core personnel, he says, haven't seen an increase in new hires in far too long.
And BC's Attorney General says drivers will find out Thursday how much insurance rates are going up. ICBC paid out $3 billion alone in injury claims last year, and the Crown Corp is warning that total could rise as more fraudulent claims are submitted. Now it's sharing one case of alleged attempted fraud, hoping it will deter others. Johanna Wagstaffe from ICBC walks us through what happens.
So here we are at a public parking lot in the Lower Mainland. We see an individual get out of their van. It looks like as though they have inadvertently put their vehicle in reverse as opposed to park. We see them trying to stop their vehicle, but unfortunately it doesn't happen. Shortly after impact, we see the individual get down on the floor. It looks like they are placing themselves right behind the front right wheel. He opened up a claim saying that he was injured in a crash that occurred at a parking lot in the Lower Mainland. He claimed that he was pinned underneath the vehicle for 10 to 20 seconds and that he had suffered a fracture on his right foot.
Well, after discovering that video, ICBC tried contacting the man again, but he wouldn't say anything more and eventually abandoned his claim. In the last year, ICBC opened 16,000 claims that were flagged as potentially fraudulent. About 54% of them had some element of fraud. Now, in order to deal with the claims, staff has more than doubled from 60 to 126 people.
Elections BC says it has counted about half of the ballots cast in this year's voting referendum. The central counting facility is a hive of activity this week, with workers stationed morning, noon, and night. Elections BC hopes to have the final result tabulated before Christmas, but warns it could take longer as the process tends to slow down near the tail end. Still, officials say it would take just over a year to implement any new system.
A number of steps need to happen. As outlined in the Attorney General's report, a legislative committee will be established to look at some aspects of how that system will work. An electoral boundaries commission will need to be struck to look at the boundaries of the electoral districts in the province.
An estimated 1.3 million voting packages were returned in the referendum.
A fire in Richmond early this morning has destroyed part of a home. 20 firefighters battled the blaze that started in a bedroom. They arrived at number 2 Road and Francis Road around 3:30 this morning. A lightly dressed man and his dog were watching from the front lawn as flames tore through. The man and a few other neighbors had called 911.
There was very active fire coming out about 6-7 feet from the window, and it was looking up underneath the eaves into the roof area. But fortunately, the exterior hand lines managed to keep it confined to the room of origin, so it didn't get into the roof or didn't affect the neighboring home.
Graybell says the man's mother owns the home but wasn't there when the blaze broke out. Firefighters kept him and his dog warm as they quickly got the flames under control. There's bad smoke and water damage, making the home unlivable for some time. While it's not clear what started the fire, the chief says it does not appear to be suspicious.
Well, traffic was snarled near East Kent and Fraser Street mid-morning when a break in a city sanitary main caused localized flooding. City says the issue is a result of the trunk line that had reached capacity and the city system couldn't drain effectively. The break forcing water to back up a few blocks north of Marine Drive. The issue was eventually resolved and traffic returned to normal once the rainfall subsided and the tides began to drop.
Oh, the rain causing lots of problems out there today. Johanna Wagstaffe is here now. And Johanna, is this mess over? Is it going to be cleaned up?
We do get a bit of a break tonight, Anita and Mike. This is the break between systems, but I do have to time out not one, not two, but we'll just say several more storms before the end of the week. But it is nice to come up for air for a moment. I want to take you back to some pictures of that flooding earlier today, though, out of Surrey, and it really did look like a little mini lake there for a moment. We did see heavy rounds of rain coming down over a long period of time, really seeing that rain ramp up through the overnight, continuing to fall at a steady rate through the morning and afternoon hours, picking up between 30 and 70 millimeters for Metro Vancouver. Higher elevations, more like 100 millimeters. and we have seen that all fall as snow for the higher elevations. But as we look at what does look like a river, keep in mind rivers, creeks, and streams are running very high this week. Let me take you to the warnings, because they have ended here in Metro Vancouver, the wind and rain warning. Snowfall, though, still in effect for the Coquihalla, as well as the BC interior mountain passes, and this is going to be a windstorm for Alberta. So our same cold front will continue to track east and bring precip. This is the latest radar shot, and you can see it's just patchy right now across Metro Vancouver. I'm just going to keep the slight risk for a stray shower in for the next couple of hours. I actually think we'll see some good sunshine tomorrow, dare I say, before the next round. So let me time it out for you and let you know when everyone should take their lunch breaks coming up.
Thanks very much, Joe.
Time is important, yes.
Okay, so you've seen and heard now from Johanna all about the problems the rain is creating, but all this mess down here actually means some snow on the local mountains.
Yes, it does, and at Mount Seymour, where the ski season has yet to begin, it's a very welcome sight. The CBC's Rafferty Baker files this report.
It's our first snow this year. Getting them ready for dog sledding, get a little exercise, get the pup used to some snow.
Tiffany McLean and her pack of huskies don't need ski lifts to have a good time in the snow. But the ski resort does. And until Mount Seymour gets a decent base, it can't open. Staff here are hoping the precipitation expected over the next few days does the trick. It's nearly raining, but this is snow, and it's starting to pile up here at Mount Seymour. Cypress and Grouse Mountain have snowmaking machines. They've been open for skiers for a bit now. But at Seymour, the strategy is different.
We're reclaiming the snow that we're picking up from the lot right now, and the snowcats will come along, take it out to the mountain, and we are getting a huge base right now on the mountain.
About a dozen machines are scraping the parking lot clear and putting that snow to good use.
Well, as soon as the other mountains open, the race is on. Typically, we always open mid-December. We're always a week or two behind them just because we rely on natural snow.
Whitehead says there's about 40 centimeters on the slopes right now, and they'll need more than double that to start the lifts. With temperatures so close to zero, mountain staff are on the edge of their seats, and seeing snow builds the anticipation. But if it gets any warmer, it will start to melt off. Fingers here are crossed. If things go well, these lifts could well be moving skiers by the weekend. Rafferty Baker, CBC News, North Vancouver.
Rafferty was pretty soaked when he got back here to the station.
He was. His gear was drenched,
yeah,
I would say.
Yeah, he said it was wet snow, but still a lot of snow up there for sure.
Very nice. Also, the Grouse Grind is closed because it's too icy and there's too much snow.
So it may reopen again, but not for right now, closed. So when it reopens, maybe I can make my first trek up there.
You're going to do it in December?
Haven't done it yet. Maybe I'll wait till the spring.
You should do it in December, yeah.
Exactly. If you're just joining us late, perhaps because you couldn't get to a TV on time, we do stream this newscast. You can find us on our website, cbc.ca/BC.
We're also on Facebook and YouTube. You can find the major stories of the day there for you to watch anytime on demand.
Well, is it retaliation for the arrest of a Huawei executive in Vancouver? Coming up, a former Canadian diplomat is detained in China. And good evening to our viewers tuning in on Facebook and on YouTube. If you've been tuning in regularly, hopefully you'll have seen the multiple warnings about carbon monoxide poisoning. It's been getting quite a bit of coverage. Last week, several people were hospitalized.
Emergency responders made a plea last week, go buy your carbon monoxide detector. It would appear that people have heard them loud and clear, and the devices are actually selling fast, leaving store shelves empty. So we sent Tina Lovegreen shopping to see what she could find.
This is where they usually keep the carbon monoxide detectors at Home Depot on Cambie Street in Vancouver. As you can see, the shelves are empty after a big rush of people over the week. Here at Home Hardware on Commercial Drive, it's much the same, though staff did restock the shelves today with as many carbon monoxide detectors as they could find, but there's only a few.
It was kind of a crunch situation because we had probably about maybe 30 or 40 in stock, and they went out here probably within 3 or 4 hours. It was a pretty good rush on carbon monoxide detectors.
There's been a sense of urgency to buy the life-saving detectors after 2 major cases of carbon monoxide poisoning. In one case, a family of 5 from Barrier was flown to Vancouver General Hospital for treatment. And the day before that, 13 people from a Vancouver office needed immediate attention after they were exposed to the gas. While it is good news that people are getting the message and buying the detectors, first responders hope that people don't give up just because they're hard to find right now.
Hopefully the shortage is short-lived, and I'm not sure if all the retailers are sold out. I assume they'll be getting more soon, but that certainly shouldn't dissuade people from getting them. If they have to maybe wait a week, it's worth the wait to have one in your home. You know, we saw 2 very near tragedies.
If you live in Vancouver, carbon monoxide detectors have been mandatory since May of 2017. But for the rest of the province, only new homes with a fuel-burning appliance or a storage garage are required to have one. That's something many first responders want to see changed, and the province says it's looking into that. In the meantime, the message is don't risk it and get a carbon monoxide detector, even if it means you have to wait for the next shipment. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
I think a lot of people, though, don't actually know if they have one in the smoke detector, including myself.
Oh, the dual thing, you smoke and, right, yeah.
Because we got a new smoke detector, but I don't know. I assume that it should have it in, but I should probably check that out.
We've got 2, but you know what? And obviously they plug in. I haven't checked the battery or changed the batteries for a long time, so I'm going to do that tonight.
So
double A or triple A.
I think the problem is everybody's kind of in the same boat, or maybe we're just not on top of it.
We're going to be on top of it, though.
We are. Very important to do so. Actually, I checked in with the family today to make sure that they all have theirs up to date.
Oh, look at you. Good for you.
Yeah, keeping an eye out for everybody, including all of you. So make sure you have got a carbon monoxide detector.
Right.
We will be back with more on our top story, Meng Wanzhou's release on bail and the impact it's having on Canada's relations with China in just a few moments.
I'm 36 years old. No lying, right? Yeah, okay.
I love to eat everything and anything.
I make a mean breakfast. Jazzy eggs. I like telling stories. I'm a curious person. What better way to tell stories than journalism?
All right, we have more for you now on today's top story. Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou has been released from custody on $10 million bail.
A BC Supreme Court judge making that ruling this afternoon after a 3-day bail hearing here in Vancouver. Meng was arrested at Vancouver International Airport December 1st. The Chinese telecom executive facing possible extradition now to the United States, where she's facing allegations her company skirted trade sanctions against Iran. Along with the $10 million bail, Meng must surrender her passports and remain here in BC. She must also be under 24-hour surveillance and pay for private security herself.
Meanwhile, tensions between China and Canada have escalated yet again. This after reports a former Canadian diplomat has been detained. Now, that diplomat currently works with an NGO, but he has deep ties to Canada's Foreign Service. And as Katie Simpson explains, there are signs his arrest may be a simple tit for tat.
So let's bring in our panel, Michael Kovrig.
Michael Kovrig knows exactly how China operates. As a former Canadian diplomat, news agencies sought out his expertise. Now the analyst has become the story.
Obviously, we are aware of the situation of a Canadian detained in China. We have been in direct contact with the Chinese diplomats and representatives.
Kovrig was arrested in China, but Ottawa says there's no explicit reason why. This former Canadian ambassador who worked with Kovrig says it is likely retaliation after Canada's arrest of Meng Wanzhou.
In China, there's no coincidence. If they want to send you a message, they will send you a message.
Guy Saint-Jacques says Kovrig received specialized diplomatic training. He was given sensitive assignments and met with Chinese dissidents. In a brutal twist, he also played a vital role in helping Kevin and Juliet Garrett after the Canadian couple was unjustly detained by the Chinese.
So he will be subject to lengthy interrogation sessions. Unfortunately, Michael knows this because he was at the embassy when we were dealing with the Garrett case and trying to get them out of China.
Canada's closest ally, even if recently unpredictable, is offering its public support.
We urge China to end all forms of arbitrary detention.
We are treating
Mr. Kovrig's case really seriously.
The Foreign Affairs Minister is now seeking more information about Kovrig's condition, and until details are clear, Chrystia Freeland has a message for his family.
This has our attention at the very highest levels of our government. We're very, very focused on it, and know that we are concerned.
The Foreign Affairs Minister has spent the past 2 days emphasizing that Canada can't and won't intervene in the Huawei case. But that message is being undercut tonight in stunning comments by U.S. President Donald Trump, who tells Reuters he would intervene if it would improve U.S.-China trading relations. That is a move that is not going to improve Canada-U.S. relations. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, it's a space-aged milestone, decades in the making. NASA's Voyager 2 spacecraft has officially left our solar system, becoming only the second human-made object to enter the vast space between the stars. Resident space enthusiast Johanna Wagstaffe joins us once again. And Johanna, this journey dates back to the 70s.
That's right, Anita. Voyager 1 and 2 were both launched in 1977, and this was really the first chance for the world to see close up the other planets in our solar system. Both of these spacecraft zoomed past Jupiter, Saturn, all the way through to Neptune, again, really giving us our first taste and close-up of these planets. Now, back in 2012, and I think I have some pictures of both of these spacecrafts lifting off back in the 70s. It was 2012 that Voyager 1 first crossed into interstellar space. That's what we call that vast emptiness between stars. So poetic, don't you think? And then just earlier this month, Voyager 2 followed suit. So Voyager 1 is now 21 billion kilometers away from us, and now Voyager 2 is following closely behind. Now, technically, they are still in the outer reaches of our solar system. We define our solar system as going all the way to the Oort cloud, which is about 30,000 years away. But we have made it outside the bubble of the sun, basically the extreme ends of the heliosphere. That's where the sun actually has influence. So we know for sure that they're headed, well, where no human has gone before, Anita.
Interstellar space. Learn something new every day. And so how do we actually know that the Voyager 2 has made it there?
Well, what I find so cool about both of these spacecraft is we're still getting data from them. So all of their instruments are still recording, sending back data. And Voyager 2, 4 of its instruments rapidly swung around earlier this month, indicating that it was no longer detecting the plasma from sun, and it was entering into this new void. And it was particularly the sun's plasma instrument that dropped off to zero almost within a day. Kind of fascinating that it really is sort of a line indicating the difference between our solar system and the interstellar space. So Anita, they've got about 5 to 10 years to go before they run out of steam, so to speak, but we'll see where they end up after that.
Well, quite the journey, and 40,000 years from the nearest star.
I'll keep you posted. We'll see when they get there. Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Johanna, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, back here on Earth, if you're trying to get your hands on a carbon monoxide detector, it might not be that easy. How stores are dealing with the rush, coming up. And here are some of the stories we're following tonight.
I mailed a Christmas gift, but I used an expedited service.
No faith. People across the province are opting to ship holiday packages using any service but Canada Post. Postal workers may have been forced back to the job, but there's still a backlog of 6 million packages across the country, while companies like FedEx and Purolator are seeing a bump in customers. Some say they are loyal to our national mail carrier.
Heavy rainfall causing all kinds of problems for drivers and transit users here on the South Coast. Several roads and a section of Highway 1 were flooded today. SkyTrain service was suspended through New Westminster, but trains are now running as scheduled.
Well, if you've been looking to buy a carbon monoxide detector in Metro Vancouver, you may have had some trouble.
The devices are selling fast, leaving store shelves empty after nearly 24 people had to be treated for CO poisoning. Our Tina Lovegreen has more.
This is where they usually keep the carbon monoxide detectors at Home Depot on Cambie Street in Vancouver. As you can see, the shelves are empty after a big rush of people over the week. Here at Home Hardware on Commercial Drive, it's much the same, though staff did restock the shelves today with as many carbon monoxide detectors as they could find, but there's only a few.
It was kind of a crunch situation because we had probably about maybe 30 or 40 in stock, and they went out here probably within 3 or 4 hours. It was a pretty good rush on carbon monoxide detectors.
There's been a sense of urgency to buy the life-saving detectors after 2 major cases of carbon monoxide poisoning. In one case, a family of 5 from Barrier was flown to Vancouver General Hospital for treatment. And the day before that, 13 people from a Vancouver office needed immediate attention after they were exposed to the gas. While it is good news that people are getting the message and buying the detectors, first responders hope that people don't give up just because they're hard to find right now.
Hopefully the shortage is short-lived, and I'm not sure if all the retailers are sold out. I assume they'll be getting more soon, but that certainly shouldn't dissuade people from getting them. If they have to maybe wait a week, it's worth the wait to have one in your home. We saw 2 very near tragedies.
If you live in Vancouver, carbon monoxide detectors have been mandatory since May of 2017. But for the rest of the province, only new homes with a fuel-burning appliance or a storage garage are required to have one. That's something many first responders want to see changed, and the province says it's looking into that. In the meantime, the message is don't risk it and get a carbon monoxide detector, even if it means you have to wait for the next shipment. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
You're looking at a live shot of the beautiful Burrard Inlet in Vancouver. A messy one out there. It has been all day. But when will the rain return now that we've got a few breaks? Johanna will have the full forecast next.
Well, the Christmas song that stirred up a lot of debate is back again.
A lot of debate.
Yes, a lot of debate. It's back on 2 of CBC's festive playlists.
I really can't. But baby, it's cold outside.
CBC and other stations temporarily banned the song from their platforms after controversy over the lyrics. Some said the Christmas classic was inappropriate in this Me Too era, since on the surface, the lyrics appear to illustrate a man pressuring a woman to stay the night. And as you said, that caused a lot of debate. CBC has revised its position. We made Baby It's Cold Outside available again for listeners.
A lot of that it was spurred on because of audience and listener comments.
Who said they wanted it, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Regardless of the debate, I've been singing it like nonstop.
It
which
gets
is really annoying for you guys,
everywhere.
I know, but yeah.
I know.
Sorry about that.
Do you want to give us
No,
your rendition right now?
I'm all
exactly.
Good, all good.
Yeah.
Listen to the radio.
Okay, fine. Well, I was going to let you sing over top of the time lapse, but
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, join in at any point. Otherwise, I'll take you through what was an incredibly soggy start to the day. Wasn't exactly cold outside. It was more wet, windy, and dark for most of the day. We'll see if we can get those lyrics in there. 6 in through YVR right now, but we did see that snow level at around 1,000 meters, just under for most of the day. So that was a silver lining for me, drenched in that rain in the dog walk this morning, that I knew it was snowing up there. Hopefully you can hold on to that for the rest of the week as well. 7 West Van, 8 degrees in through Pitt Meadows, warmer in through the valley, and 9 out towards Abbotsford. This is the cold front that's tracking eastward that brought us all the rain. We quickly got behind it. In fact, there was a glimmer of sun just for a moment trying to break through the clouds around 3:30 p.m. That was just about when that front rolled through. Still looking at a wet westerly flow, meaning we do have the risk of a few showers overnight tonight. Generally, though, I'm going to keep us in a clearing trend. And I do think there's a good shot of seeing the sun tomorrow morning. If you want that breath of fresh air, I would recommend heading outdoors tomorrow before sort of around 10 a.m. That's when I think the showers could refill in. Showers through most of the day, and then it'll actually ramp back up to steady rain towards the evening hours tomorrow. So we are not done with the heavy stuff, but tomorrow a little bit of a break. Again, breaking right through to 7 a.m., stopping you there, and you can see all of the clear skies surrounded by that system sliding in from the west. But the first act of this new system will be lighter showers through the afternoon. It's towards 6, 7, 8 p.m. that we'll see the steady rain move back in. And yes, definitely pooling on the roads possible once again overnight tomorrow into Thursday. A lot of wet weather on the island as well. We could see bullseyes over 100 millimeters again. That snow level will mean some snow for Mount Washington. But just taking a look at the rainfall totals, where we have the whites, that's the 100 millimeter total. So this is on top of what we have already seen. And again, keep in mind, rivers and streams and creeks are running very high already. And this is just a storm one of several as we head into the next couple of days. So big picture, here's that exiting low pressure system that, by the way, is going to bring some big winds to southern Alberta through tomorrow morning. They've got the wind warnings in place. That break, I was talking through it because it is brief. So the break really tonight through to tomorrow morning. By Wednesday afternoon, that next system rolls in. And look at all of the blue across the province. This will bring some good alpine snow. And I should mention that avalanche risk is slowly creeping up there for alpine levels, especially across the south coast. But let me get you to the 7-day forecast where we've got more rain. I did put the sun in for tomorrow morning. Steadier rain through Thursday. That system that ramps up tomorrow night will make for a washout Thursday. And Thursday afternoon, don't be alarmed if those snow levels creep up and we actually get some rain on the top of our locals. It'll turn back to snow Thursday overnight into Friday. We should get another 20 to 30 centimeter dump just in time for the weekend. So again, that's the silver lining, people.
Nice of you to give us that little bit of sun.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem.
And baby, it's not cold outside, at least down here.
Exactly. It's baby, it's seasonal outside.
All right. It's a new hit.
Exactly.
Thanks, Joe.
And the BC Lions have found Wally Buono's successor. Devon Claybrooks is the team's new head coach after some successful years with the Calgary Stampeders.
The other teams in the league should worry about us. I mean, honestly speaking, we have the tools, and we have the tools at hand to be a successful franchise for years to come. And we talked, and that was one of the key things that we wanted to be, is we want to be dominant for a prolonged period of time. But you also get to see who you're surrounded.
Claybrooks spent 7 years on the Stamps coaching staff. winning this year's Grey Cup with the team. He also spent 11 years playing in the NFL, the CFL, and in Europe. A Christmas market shooting in France has left 3 people dead. Many more have been hurt. We will have more on that after the break. There's been a deadly attack on a quiet Christmas market in France. Several people are dead and many more have been hurt.
The gunman took off after the shooting before being cornered by police hours later. The CBC's Nala Ayad has the latest details on a very chaotic situation.
On the busy, early evening sidewalks near a Christmas market drawing people in the thousands, security was, in the words of the mayor, draconian. But somehow, the lone gunman got through, unleashing panic. The horror of the attack as it unfolded, captured here as people sprint to get away. One of them is shot. Then there are yet more gunshots. In several cases, the injuries are critical. Peter Fritz witnessed the initial attack, which to him sounded like firecrackers.
But then, when I turned the corner, I immediately realized how grave the situation was. There was this man on the ground, bleeding from the head with the apparent gunshot wound. There was his wife next to him, crying out for help. Some people had already started to resuscitate him. First, we did it out on the streets. Then we dragged him into a restaurant that was right close by and tried to resuscitate him for 45 minutes, unfortunately to no avail.
The gunman apparently also wounded in a shootout with soldiers. But with him still on the run, in the streets and online, people were ordered to hide in place, to stay indoors. Dozens still stuck in restaurants as the manhunt continued. Even the European Parliament, based in Strasbourg, it too was put on lockdown, and the border controls nearby tightened. Local reports say the man is Strasbourg-born and has been known to police, that he frequented extremist circles, that he was even to be arrested in a raid on his home earlier in the day in connection to a robbery. There were reports security forces had cornered the gunman, that he was holed up in a building. But the Interior Minister said he was still on the run. The French President, Emmanuel Macron, tweeted, "Solidarity of the whole nation for Strasbourg, its victims and their families." Once again, France will be waking up to a raft of disturbing questions. Strasbourg's mayor says the Christmas market will be closed tomorrow to investigate how the gunman got into the security zone to kill. The other urgent question is why. Nala Ayed, CBC News, London.
And in London, Brexit is casting a gloomy pall over a number of businesses.
The Bank of England has said a no-deal Brexit could spark a calamity similar to the 2008 financial crisis. As the CBC's Thomas Daigle explains, you can smell fear, even at the flower market.
At Britain's biggest flower market this early in the morning, £35 a wrap. There's barely time to stop and smell those blooms. With much of London still asleep, this industry is already bustling.
People go into hotels, etc., 3 o'clock in the morning to do their flowers. If they don't arrive till 7 or 8, it's a disaster.
Most flowers here have one thing in common. They've come from the Netherlands, either grown there or purchased from Dutch exporters.
Holland are the masters, you know, they flower the world, that's their motto, and they do.
Flowers coming from Europe usually go through customs and sanitary checks right at the warehouse in the Netherlands. But florists fear Brexit without a deal could lead to serious delays in a business full of tight deadlines. The UK could impose new border checks, slowing the industry to a crawl. This is the busiest time of the year for flower shops. A make it or break it period as Brexit uncertainty leaves the industry wilting.
5 florist shops a week close on the high streets at the moment. How much will be left of our industry when they finally come to a deal or no deal?
This is one example of a British industry built around frictionless EU trade, hoping the Prime Minister can deliver a deal to ease Brexit's impact.
The deal that's on the table, we still don't know what the implications are going to be.
Every day, Gemma Kavanagh goes online to check prices from Dutch and British suppliers. And with Brexit sending the British pound tumbling, she's suffered a 20% hike in wholesale prices. This isn't what wholesaler John Hardcastle says he voted for. A self-proclaimed EU Remainer, he's grown sick of uncertainty.
We've been in limbo too long. We need a deal of some sort, one way or the other.
Deal or no deal, so far no one knows what Brexit Day will bring. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, London.
Ontario's police oversight body is about to release the results of its systemic review on how the Thunder Bay Police Service has investigated Indigenous deaths and missing persons cases. The Office of the Independent Police Review Director looked at 37 cases dating back to 2009. Karen Pauls is in Thunder Bay and tells us what tomorrow's report means to the community.
To go to the hospital. This video, which surfaced last week, appears to show an Indigenous youth being hit by a Thunder Bay police officer. You do not spit on me!
Because our actions speak much louder than words.
Just the latest example of what people here say is racist policing.
They're supposed to uphold the morals and values, the very fabric of society, right? And if they're treating Indigenous people like this, that leaves it wide open for Indigenous peoples, for hate crimes.
Just a few blocks away, people gathered to support the family of another young man whose body was found in a local park on Sunday. 17-year-old Braden Jacob was in Thunder Bay for medical reasons.
It's very shocking for my people in the community are impacted as well.
Well, Boss says so far he's happy with the way Jacob's case is being investigated, but that's not true for many cases the police force has handled. There's already been an inquest into the deaths of 7 Indigenous students. But it was 41-year-old Stacey DeBungy's death that triggered the systemic review. His death was ruled non-criminal just 25 hours after his body was found here.
Indigenous people are seen differently.
when it comes to their safety, when it comes to their tragedies, their deaths.
Most of it is all blocked.
Thea Glidey never believed the Thunder Bay police report into the death of her sister Christine.
To me, it almost felt like they didn't want to deal with it. It's almost like, okay, and she just froze, and then that's done.
She hopes tomorrow's report will force police to reopen the case.
I'm hurt, frustrated, knowing what really happened to her. I want to know.
Back at the community meeting, business owner Lori Paris says everyone has a role to play in repairing this fractured city.
We can become the city that's known for turning this around, or we're going to have a stain in our history that we might not be able to ever get over.
Like the sleeping giant, this city is waiting. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Thunder Bay.
Former customers of Sears Canada are speaking out again tonight. They bought warranties the company will never honor. But when one man stopped making payments on his warranty, the threatening phone calls began. The CBC's Yvonne Colbert reports.
Mike Albany bought 4 high-end appliances along with an extended warranty from Sears in 2015. Last year, before it closed its doors, the company announced it would not honor those warranties, but people were still expected to pay for them. It promised the money collected would be credited to the final payment. Albany paid off his account except for the warranty payments owed after Sears closed. But now Scotiabank, which owns the Sears accounts, is telling him to pay $600 for the warranty or face damaged credit.
They said, just pay the bill and it'll be no more of a headache. Why worry for such an amount? And Scotiabank leads me to believe that my credit history is going to be blemished if I don't pay at least a minimum bill by the December 19th.
Albany says he feels like Scotiabank is holding his credit rating for ransom.
It's not ethical to charge people the way that they're doing it for service that's not been provided now or in the future.
Scotiabank says as it was Sears which sold the warranty and it was Sears that was paid at the time of the purchase, unfortunately, this is a situation that customers have to resolve directly with Sears. But that's not possible because Sears has shut down. The firm handling the closure says extended warranty holders are considered unsecured creditors, and they'll have to wait for court decisions before finding out whether they'll get any of their money back.
It's the kind of story that amplifies, the standard worries about, about what business is all about, worries that companies are really only out for the bottom line and don't care that much about their customers.
Mike Albany must now decide whether to pay Scotiabank or risk damage to his credit. To add insult to injury, 3 of his 4 appliances need repairs, so he has to pay out of pocket, plus continue to pay the warranty, which should have covered some of that cost. Yvonne Colbert, CBC News, Halifax.
The Royal Canadian Air Force and RCMP have joined with the North Pole on a very special holiday mission. We get an inside look and meet a very special VIP next.
A big package arrived on the runway at the Goose Bay Airport yesterday in Newfoundland and Labrador. Pallets filled with presents, offloaded from a Canadian Air Force plane into the hands of the RCMP.
It's a joint operation to get gifts to some of the more remote points along the Labrador coast, and a meaningful mission for all involved, including Santa himself. The CBC's Jacob Barker was there.
Beautiful day at Goose Bay to have the toys brought up from Trenton. Good to have the Royal Canadian Air Force bringing stuff for us, making sure the boys and girls up north are getting lots of nice gifts for Christmas this year.
I think it's great. It's an awesome opportunity. It only happens for us once a year, but it's neat to be able to come up here and provide hopefully a good Christmas for all the kids at the other northern communities.
You had Santa here waiting for you. You know, being able to assist a big guy like that, what do you think?
Oh yeah, it's an awesome opportunity for sure.
We're going to get the people to come offload our plane, and then we'll be on the way for our next destination.
Wow, that's perfect.
It's quite an operation.
Yes, it is. Got to make sure everybody's happy in Canada over the holiday season, and this is a big part of it through the RCMP, the military police. It's a great thing for everybody.
Canadian Forces Herc just arrived, and we had a big loader to unload a bunch of pallets here at the RCMP hangar. Today we'll sort the presents, wrap them tomorrow, and then they'll head up the coast of Labrador. We'll try to hit as many of the communities in Labrador coast as we can. That will be determined.
We're supporting an extremely good cause, right? So getting toys to the north, getting toys to underprivileged and people who just do not have that kind of access. It's a big deal. We are privileged to be able to actually do that. So you know, it's a great cause to support.
Very nice. Well, a very modern nativity scene showing a selfie-snapping Joseph and Mary is turning some heads in Quebec.
It's because it's like a mirror on our society. It's not very a traditional scene, but it's in the tradition of representing nativity scene in different era, culture.
So Joseph snaps a selfie while Mary clutches a cup of coffee. Baby Jesus looks the same, but everything else has kind of a hipster vibe. It includes the wise men who arrive on Segways.
The set is the creation of two Americans who first dreamt it up as a joke, and they were surprised by how popular and how polarizing it turned out to be.
The work is on display at Canada's largest cathedral in Montreal. It's part of a collection of 1,000 different nativity scenes.
Not enough man buns.
Not enough. Oh. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.
Good night.